We're now joined by the Honourable Minister of Transport and Works, Mike Henry, to talk to us about a 12 billion, 11 program, island-wide job that he's going to do, and here to tell us about it. Good morning, sir. Welcome to Smile Jamaica once again. Is that right?
Thank you very much once again. It's true, yeah.
12 billion.
Getting me up too early, though.
12 billion?
13 billion, actually,
13 billion.
on this program.
Okay.
There are other programs to come because this is not all CES. This is a part of CDB, IDB, and part of the recovery from Gustav overall.
So you have the money?
Oh, yes.
Where do you start?
Well, we start, if you drive along Washington Boulevard, you'll see that the purchasing of all the properties along that corridor is now complete, so that we can put the 6-lane road from where it ends at, I think, around about Texaco, where and then right on down. So that's going to start. The contract has been awarded, and that should start in December, January, and then finish in about 12 months, or maybe less. Then you have the Bogue Road, which is in progress at the moment. That's in Montego Bay. That's 1.4 billion. The Washington Boulevard is 1.2 billion. And then we go on improving the Red Hills to Sligoville Road. Then we have Sheffield to Negril, so it's spread across the country overall. As you remember, Gustav washed away the Harborview Bridge, and we have just a temporary bridge that we had put in. So the 4-lane bridges contract should be awarded shortly, and that will be part of the program that will be redeveloped. We're going to finish work in the Sandy Gully. It's about 5 billion. That's still to save the Sandy Gully area. You have Maypen to Soursop Turn and on to Trout Hook. Yeah, Soursop Turn. So basically, you have the Toms River to Agualta Vale. That's to be done also. And Port Royal Street is threatened, and we're going to sort of rehabilitate that along there to continue the exit from Norman Manley all the way through. And then we're going to do 5 bridges, more bridges. That will include the railway bridge across the Sandy Gully, so that we can accommodate the running of cargo trains along there from the port into Vernam Field, so you have a sea-air link of the movement of cargo.
Okay.
That should enhance the development and the export market, and of course create an awful lot of jobs, but I prefer to deal with Vernam Field as a total package. So that is the $13 billion program, pretty much.
Yes. It's an extensive program, and there's no way any country can build economic wealth without great roads, so it's a necessary program. 13 billion in total. I know 12 billion is sourced from international agencies. Where do we find the other $1 billion that Jamaicans need to put up
the
for this?
The other $1 billion will probably support it from the CES, but we had something in the Capital A budget that wasn't removed earlier, that were committed as part of the program. So that comes from the GOJ budget.
Okay. And upgrading the roads is important. My next fear, of course, is 6 months after the road is finished, a year after the road is finished, we're right back where we started, in that the roads deteriorate. Is there a long-term plan for maintenance?
There is a long-term plan. There's a road master plan that we're implementing. This is part of what the CES program is about. But we're trying to approach the whole road network in a slightly different way, because as you remember, we did the gorge, and we did some of that with cement. And of course, the rule here is that you must really restore the the bridges, you must restore the breakaways, and you must build the necessary structures to proport the river to the road, or the water on the road. So yes, there is a program that's relating to that, and we're experimenting with some new approaches in relation to it. I'm still waiting on the exciting development of using red mud as a base for roads. Some of those tests have been completed. So no, we understand the maintenance aspect of it, and we're going to be improving on that as we go along.
When do you think the test results will come in?
Which one?
The test results on the red mud.
The red mud tests are in. We're waiting on the final response in terms of all the technical aspects. And of course, the copyright will be owned by the people, but we're trying to look at that and analyze it, and I'll have more to say on that later on.
Okay, so we'll have you back to speak on that. You also mentioned rail. As a young girl, I remember taking the train, and trains are no more in terms of commercial passengers. Will you be returning to that commercial passenger service or maintaining cargo only?
I'm approaching the redevelopment of the railway and the 5 elements of the value of the railway. The railway has a value for cargo, for passengers, transference of data, and what we call heritage tourism. So that these four elements will be related to how you redevelop the railway and the phased basis on which you're going to seek to redevelop it. What I'm addressing right now when I speak of the railway bridge is a connecting sea-air link. That is when the goods come into the Kingston Harbour and are landed, the railway will be right into the harbour. You then take your containers off, you put it on the railway, it runs straight out to Vernon Field. Now, Vernon Field is where you'll be landing the large cargo planes. So equally, cargo will be coming in by plane, which you want to move back to the sea. So because the bridge is weakened and it has to be taken an average weight of a container, which is part of what the whole structure will be, then it's very important that we restore the railway. So from here to Vernon Field is cargo, but it will be able to take passengers along the route once we have started the overall economic thrust of what it is overall. We lack in Jamaica statistics and figures to plan totally. We ran the railway the other day from Spanish Town to Williamsfield. I'm trying to get home the number of children who would be going to school between, say, Spanish Town and Williamsfield. Well, a number of schools, 4 in Clarendon, etc. And therefore, when you get all of these statistics, which is what the economic studies just completed now, then you'll be able to also, and we're not going to have to run it at an economic loss. We are structuring the economics of each thing that maybe if you wanted to lease the school train and you wanted to finance running that, we would lease you the time on the track or we lease you the carriages in relation to it. Now take Montego Bay area. The lines are in place, everything is there for you to be able to run again from Montego Bay to, I think it's Catadupa, which was what's known as the Appleton Tour, which is what I call the Rum Tour, because Appleton has to pay me the copyright if they want the name, pay for that's what I meant about the whole thing. That's the fifth element of the railway. The fifth element of the railway is intellectual property rights. It is the second oldest railway in the world. Therefore, in that context, there are a lot of spin-offs that you can get the history of the railway created, which has an intellectual value. That in itself can bring a lot. But more importantly right now, when I inherited what was the railway structure left, the balance sheet stood 400 million in property value. I can assure you it's now reached 2.5 billion. In fact, the railway, Rodney Arms is owned by the Jamaica Railway Corporation.
You mentioned 5 elements. I understand 4 of the 5. You also mentioned data transfer.
Yeah, well,
can you elaborate?
What is the best place for you to put fiber optic cables and move data than along the railway lines? It exists to 12 parishes in Jamaica. It exists overall, and the transference of data, which is why I'm fighting for rights of way, the transference of data by road, i.e. whether it be electricity, water, etc., all the cables that run your television, people should be paying for the rights to use that. That rights is what helps to do the maintenance that flows in terms of roads. In fact, in some countries in the world, the income from that is greater than what you find coming from the normal spend or even the toll. So basically, that's up for options, that's up for anyone to bid on, but it can equally be related to the government's own transfer of data and communications.
What you going to do with Tinson Pen, sir? We were speaking before we came on.
Tinson Pen is where we're putting up logistic centers, because all of that ties in terms of the ability to move goods across the world. I.e., when the opening of the Panama Canal coming up in 2015, you're going to move larger quantities of goods on a ship. You're going to have to find a point along the equator in which you're going to break bulk cargo to distribute to the rest of the world. That is how a logistics center came into being. So that along Tinson Pen with the logistics centers to break the bulk cargo into smaller units to fly them out by normal cargo planes, passenger cargo planes, etc. And of course, you have Norman Manley, and when you finish your toll roads into Vernon Field, your communications is 20, 30 minutes from point A to point B.
Ken Jones?
Ken Jones is going to be not lengthened because it's limit to the end, but it's going to be upgraded. As you saw in today's papers, Boscobel will be a 3rd port of entry. We're completing Boscobel in December for private jets to come in. And therefore, we're also building Ducken Field, so that you're upgrading each of them will be upgraded, Negril, and interconnected for the movement of cargo. and not just to satisfy Jamaica, but to satisfy the world and the feeding out of the break bulk of cargo which must take place.
I suspect that part of the upgrading for Ken Jones would be lights, because I was...
Oh yes, lights, upgrading.
I was told that they couldn't go
yeah,
there because
that's right.
of that.
All of that is what will be the upgrading section, which will come in the next 2 years as we roll out each of the developmental areas. Now, in terms of that whole area of Ken Jones, however, you're going to need to improve the road surface. You've got to begin to improve the protection of the where the sea is. As you know, if you drive along there, you'll see that some of the roads may have to be moved in a bit, but you have to put the rivetment to protect them along the way. And I'm likely to announce the highway going that way. So I leave that one I leave that one for the moment.
Speaking of highways, work on Mount Rossa.
Mount Rossa, it's about 3 to 4 weeks behind, I think, at the moment. But they're now laying asphalt. Now we have to connect from Spanish Town to Mount Rossa, because unfortunately we started that highway in the middle, and you didn't really improve the access from Spanish Town to move to Mount Rossa. Mount Rossa is due to be completed around about April, May. What we're working on now is the design of improving the connection from Spanish Town toll towards Mount Rossa, and then the funding I'm still searching for from the end of Mount Rossa into Ocho Rios. That is a couple of years to complete, but Mount Rossa will be open and connected around about April, May.
Okay.
We spoke extensively about land. We spoke about the airports and aerodromes that we're looking to upgrade. Can we speak a little bit more about the sea and your plans for example, the Caribbean Maritime Institute and how it plays into our development?
Well, the Caribbean Maritime Institute is an important element, just like Vernon Field is for aeronautical, where we're building the Aerospace College at Vernon Field. The Caribbean Maritime Institute has shown remarkable resilience and growth recently. Most of its graduates are employed throughout the world. And by the support of the ship registry, which we're putting in Bremen and in Singapore, they're increasing their outreach. They're even doing distance teaching. So they're due for an expansion, and they're going to form part of what we call the training in these areas of the need for people to be employed in the world. If you're going to develop the port, then you need to have to also develop the ability of our young people to be trained. So Caribbean Maritime Institute is going to be expanding to up to 2,000 students, I think is the number. They have been able to tie up some things with Singapore, utilizing both the Singaporean training process and by extension ensuring that we reach out to the Caribbean, which we're supposed to service. I might be in London to ensure that we are re-elected to the IMO, which is very important to that. As you know, the Falmouth Pier is being built for the Genesis right now. We're speaking with Carnival about the upgrading of Montego Bay and Ocho Rios and the possible cruise ship pier. I use possible only because we have to cite whether it's Kingston or Port Royal, and there is some degree of discussions, but that's in the 3-year plan also.
Prime Minister Goling had commented that a number of persons are going to school but going into the traditional industries. Everybody's trying to learn to be a business manager, and that there are a number of other professions that are underutilized. We've had our guest indicate that Maritime is undersubscribed in terms of students. If you were to speak to the Jamaican people and say this is where the jobs will be 5 years, 10 years down the line, where would you tell them to go?
Exactly where we just said. In terms of young 14 to 18-year-olds, the aeronautical and the maritime industry. And that even applies to people being laid off in the bauxite industry, because you have a start. Because Vernon Field also is meant to have an MRO, because all the aeroplanes that are being repaired across the world, most of them are flown into Europe or as far as Singapore. But there's no repair facilities that are available south of the equator and include North America. So that the MRO to be established there using the Singapore aeronautical experience is where there has been an awful lot of jobs created in every sense of the word.
One last question. In terms of training, aeronautical training, maritime training can sometimes be expensive. Is there a plan to have subsidized training to help encourage more Jamaicans move into this field?
That's certainly an approach, and in fact a shipping company, Harrin and Partners, who have given us a ship registry off in Bremen too, or shares that with us, are committed, and that's why we're expanding the ship registry so that you've got automatic employment. The agreement we have working with Singapore, for instance, is they can take 1,000 graduates every year just to satisfy the market in the Far East.
Automatic employment is a
And
very
these
big
are
phrase.
some of these are high-end jobs as you work your way up through the system. So that basically we've had some limited success in the sense that we graduated 72 students from CMI all working. We're going to hopefully graduate 96 this year, and we hope to double that as we go along. And I'm looking to make them captains, not like when you get on the cruise ships where all we're working serving the drinks. Eh?
Oh,
Thank you,
that's
sir.
basic.